I think you're muted, Sanyukta.
Oh, is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So one thing to consider when you're choosing which PhD program to apply is the acceptance rate for different international students. Even though most schools are very welcoming and accepting of international students, a lot of times their funding agencies or their funding resources might be kind of contingent on the citizenship requirements. So this is one thing to consider if the school, especially right now, are they taking international students or do they have the money to support international students? And then the next is what are these requirements for TOEFL and IELTS? And there are also some schools which allow for Duolingo and other sorts of examination. I know of some schools where you can submit your transcript if you did your undergrad in English, your major was like your uh, the medium of language for your undergraduate was English, you can like submit some proof for that. So please check in with the graduate program coordinator for uh whichever program you're applying for. And the last is if there's any scholarships or assistantships available for international students. So this is something like a lot of countries have Fulbright, and then some like German countries have DARD fellowship where you can support yourself by applying for a fellowship or a scholarship. And then most US schools I know of, they support you either through graduate research assistantship or graduate teaching assistantship, where you either do research for a lab and then the professor's grant pays you. Or you can teach, so you can do like teaching a lab, or you can teach some course and like be a tutor for a course. So there are various options available, and this is heavily dependent on which school you're at and which program you're in. So do check this out. It's mostly available in any department or programs like info or FAQ portion of the application. And yeah, contact the graduate program coordinator for sure. And then also what program to apply for. For example, if I'm interested in astrophysics. So a lot of schools have this physics department where you can apply for. A lot of schools have astronomy separately. So some schools you might benefit by applying to both. Some schools put a limit if you can apply for one or multiple of them. And I think Maria can talk about this because she has like an interdisciplinary field, and there can be other examples also where for example, you're doing something in electronics, so you can do ECS or you can do just computer science or stuff like that. So if Maria Smriti can also chime in on how to choose if to go for like a biophysics or some other.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Yeah, so this is actually what happened to me. Um, and this slide is actually taken from the program that I joined during graduate school. So when I applied to the University of Georgia, um, I chose an umbrella program that is called International Life Sciences. And once you apply to this type of program, they usually they have an agreement with multiple departments. In this case, there were more than 10. So in the application, of course, you have to list your top three and, of course, some labs and faculty. And if you get the interview and you get admitted, you have the opportunity to do the rotation into 3 to 4 departments. So this is a great choice if you still are undecided, if you like, for example, like in my case, I was interested in biochemistry, but also pharmaceutical sciences. And this type of programs gives you, more choices. And yeah, so, but on the same, and also, um, you can still apply to one department directly, but it's really up to you if you already have like an idea what you want to do, or you have already contacted a professor. That's still a valid option um, that that you can pursue it. But in my case, was really useful and helped me choose at the end I chose pharmaceutical sciences. So that's what I usually recommend, especially to international students if they're still unsure about what type of field they want to work on as PhD student.
I'll just add to that. Something very similar and interesting happened to me too. So the professor that I wanted to work with, he was affiliated with both the physics program and the biophysics program. And I had emailed him before asking that I'm interested, and he was interested in taking me. And he told me that I could apply to either programs. And I thought my background aligned better with physics, so I applied to the physics program here. And then I get an email in January saying that this year the intake of physics program was less, so we couldn't take you. But the professor emailed me separately saying that, oh, I'll be happy to take you through the biophysics program. So he moved my application to the biophysics program, and then I got in through that. So things like this can happen randomly. And I was pretty lucky that I had that contact with the professor. So I knew, because I wouldn't have thought of applying to like multiple programs or like a different program. Um, but sometimes one thing I would recommend doing is that if there's a particular person you really want to work with, they in US they will usually be affiliated with more than one programs depending on what kind of area you work in. So you can contact them directly and ask what program they recommend applying to. So they might look at your application and say that your application is more suited for this particular umbrella program just because your background suits that program better. Or they can also be like, oh, I'm not taking students through this program, but maybe apply through this program. So you never know from where it might work out. So I definitely recommend looking at different umbrella programs and trying to apply to more than one.
Yeah, a similar thing happened with my friend also. He was also from India and he was applying for a program in physics, but then he did not get admitted into the physics program. But then the professor told him to go and submit an application for the mechanical engineering department, which he did not think would be like his fit. But because essentially in grad school, you do courses for a couple of years, but you can also do courses outside your like major outside your department because you get a lot of freedom. And it's essentially the most of it is how you work with your PI and what work you do with your PI or your group. So yeah, definitely look around because there's some departments which are much more competitive than others. For example, if you have astronomy and physics get the same number of applications, but then astronomy has lesser like seats and vacancies than physics. So this is just an example. And so one thing also to consider is to where you're going. A lot of people have preferences whether they want to go for a big city, a small town, because in US you can have a lot of college towns which can be sort of isolating, and there can be big cities where you have like, is your pay of your graduate stipend enough to like match up with your what the living cost is? So that's something to consider. Then also the public transit. In Europe, it's pretty common to have like bikes and like trains and buses available. In US, if you're doing in the college town, you might need to get a car. So it depends if you want to drive a car, if you can drive a car. And also the weather. If you are someone who does not like snow at all, avoid anywhere above like the Midwest or something because it really snows in. Or if you're someone who really wants the snow. So look into these factors because graduate school is a significant chunk of your life. It's your 20s or 30s, and you spend a lot of time and you'll be working hard. So you do want to enjoy your life outside your lab or your group or your office. And some other things to also consider outside the location is that suppose you're interested in A, B, and C fields in your specific discipline, and whether the department or the program you're applying for has professors or faculties doing that kind of research. And if not, is there any other department which kind of collaborates, or do they collaborate with a national lab per se? Like, for example, if you want to do neutrino physics, and there's one faculty who does it, but they collaborate with Fermi Labs. So do consider what kind of research projects you can have available to you when you apply for a department. And then also consider, like, especially as international students, it can be easy to feel isolated sometimes. So do look at the department's kind of mixture of people and how the backgrounds and where they come from. And overall, if the school is welcoming to international people, do they have a history of international students? So you can form a small community when you go there and you're living like 5 or 6 years of your life there. And also something to definitely consider is that when you're applying for a program, and suppose you want to do neutrino physics, but the school you're applying to has no neutrino physics faculty taking students or no availability for neutrino graduate students. So yeah, that's why having a PI, I've just put a Yoda over there. But yeah, having an idea who your PI is going to be, and if they are available to advise you, it's very important. So, yeah, these things are the major chunk you want to consider before applying for grad school. And also, so do think of your life outside your lab or this bubble you work in. Because usually you'll try to work from 9 to 5, 9 to 6, or whatever. And then you also have to live a life outside because you want to maintain the rhythm of research you're having. So that's why do consider how your life will look like outside your research group or your lab, and whether you have enough ways to enjoy and relax and get involved in other things and follow your passions and hobbies. And something about language requirements, it depends, like if you need the TOEFL or IELTS, I know these can get kind of expensive because they do charge a hefty amount. So if your first language is English, you do not need it. If you're from a country where English is one of the major languages, you do not need it. So that's an Anglophone country. But if you hold a BS from a country where the English is not one of the Anglophone languages or it's not one of the major languages, you can still have a chance to skip these exams if you read the FAQ of the school programs, or you can contact the graduate coordinator, and often they can give you a waiver based on your English proficiency if you've done that in your undergrad. But in case you have not done your undergrad in English as a medium, you can try giving any of these, also Duolingo or something like that. But yeah, do definitely see, because not all schools take TOEFL or not all school takes IELTS. So that depends kind of university to university and even department to department. And check the dates for these because they are sometimes, I'm not sure if they're available at home, but even to go and give it, you need to go to certain cities or centers to give this. So do check the dates. You don't want to miss these. So for most schools, you can kind of submit an application and email them that you haven't gotten your TOEFL results yet. So they can be accommodating that you can submit this later, but then do make sure that you're meeting these requirements. And they also like the criteria you need to meet is kind of like each section dependent, and they keep changing it a bit and it varies across schools. So do kind of look into these finer details before you choose a school.
Sorry, I want to
And
add
for
something for the last
yeah,
slide. So also for the people who haven't given TOEFL yet, from when I gave it, the requirement is that you have to pay an upfront fee for TOEFL first, and then the number of universities you submitted to. I think the first 5 are free, and then after that, for everyone, you have to pay a certain fee. So I didn't know that before I gave the exam, and I was kind of shocked that now I have to pay every time I have to apply to a new university. So in case you haven't given TOEFL yet, just keep in mind the 5 schools that you get for free. Try to make them the schools that you definitely need to give a score for so that you can save money. You don't have to pay extra for every new school you select. And Yeah, I think another thing is that what someone told me when I was giving TOEFL is that if the deadline for your application is 1st of December and you give TOEFL like 2, 3 days before that, usually your score doesn't reach the university a week from when you give it or a week from when your scores are out. So if you're scheduling your TOEFL very late, just make sure that it might not reach at the same time as your application. So try to give it at least like 15 days before your application deadlines so that the scores reach the universities on time.
Yeah, I would advise even like 1 month in advance. Like I mean, I took in 2017, and I remember it. I think it arrived like was very, very close to the deadline. Even if I took TOEFL in October, but then I didn't know also that it was gonna take time, for the university to receive the score. So I wait until the application. So if you haven't scheduled TOEFL IELTS, I would really encourage you, to look into that. Try to do the test next month, and hopefully by that time you will also have a more clear idea about university, where you want to apply to. So unfortunately you are not in control of this, meaning you don't know when your score are gonna be sent. So the sooner the better. That's my advice.
From my experience, these TOEFL scores, at least when I gave it, it lasts 2 years. So if you give it now, it can last you longer. If you gave it last year, it's gonna last. But if you gave it 2 years ago, it's gonna expire, which is kind of annoying. You cannot forget English in 2 years. But yeah, do check in, because some schools I know where they'll just ask you for the score, and they'll only ask for the official TOEFL report once you're admitted in. So make sure, as Smriti mentioned, that send it to the schools which need it then and there. And then for the schools which need it later, you can wait till you get admitted or get a call back or something. And a lot of schools require academic transcripts and proof of your degree. So a lot of them require, if you're doing a US university, you need them to be in English. So you can talk to your university of your undergrad in advance to maybe get a transcription or some translation of your transcript. And then there's a difference between official and non-official. Non-official is something where you can just download off or you can get it from your university registrar. But the official is something which comes in stamped, proving that you actually have the degree, and it's just more fancy terms. But these official transcripts are more required, in my experience in physics programs, more at the end once you're already admitted. Before that, you can submit a non-official transcript, and you can also might want to do a GPA conversion because different universities and different countries have different scoring metrics. I know Germany is completely different to what I've ever seen. India usually goes from 0 to 10, US goes from 0 to 4. So make sure you are doing the right conversion and do not convert if they do not ask you to, because a lot of physics applications, in my experience, did not ask you to convert. They ask you to put in your original score as it is and just mention your undergrad institute so they can do the conversion for you. But I think for biophysics and pharmaceutical, I think Maria and Smriti can chime in how it was like for them.
Yeah, in my case, some university asked me for the transcript, for the translation, and I use one of the credential evaluation service. And an advice I can give is start as soon as possible, because it takes time, and again, you're not in control of that. And most of the time, this evaluation service, they will send the do you say your transcript in GPA directly to the university. So it's very important for you to give them to be aware where you want to apply and give them, for example, the address of the graduate school, because if not, they may not take it. I remember that it happened to me because they deliver to my address and they say, oh no, they are not official, because they had to be sent to them, to the graduate schools. All these little things takes time. And if you need to contact your university, they may not be really familiar with that. At least my university in Italy was not so familiar, so it took me some time just to explain to them what I need, that you have to be official. So yes, start right now. If if you have an idea where you want to apply, this is something important that, again, you're not in control of that. So I would advise just to start earlier and check if you need an evaluation service or not.
Yeah, I think in my experience, I didn't really have to convert my scores or anything. I think I just put in my scores as they were, and they were converted. I don't think for any application I had to give them a converted score. But I think one of the things that happened with my friend was the same, that she got the transcript from her university sent here, but they didn't, like, they weren't okay with the format of it, or there was some issue. So I think after 1 year of her already being here and admitted, they again were like, oh, we don't agree with the transcript that you've sent. So then she had to call her undergrad university and get it figured out again, already after her being here for a year. So it can be a pain that way, and it's better to get it sorted out initially, because some schools might just think of it as a formality. Some schools might think of it as a reason to not take you and take someone else. You never know. So it's always better to be sure from your end so nothing like this happens. So I would just recommend talking to your university already, that you might need something like this sent to universities in future, so they know what the process is going to be like. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always like if you know these are going to be the logistical hurdles in your application, it's better to get them out as soon as you can. Because you don't want to get rejected based on these silly logistical issues. And And so what happens next is kind of a timeline where you apply for graduate school, and then around, like, depending on your school and your program, you start getting notifications from December to January. But do not get worried, because I've seen a lot of programs release their like wait list, or like go on slowly up to February and some even March. So that's usually the time you get the interview, and then most schools have this deadline for you to respond to them around April. So that's like in April, given all the offers you have, you kind of decide which place you want to go. And coming to like the earlier things we talked about, choosing a place where you apply, also when you have multiple admissions, you kind of get to choose where you want to go to. And that a lot of it depends on who is willing to work with you over there, and whether you like when you talk to the graduate students in your program already who have been there, and definitely talk to them, because they will tell you honestly how the experience has been in the department and with certain professors. Because in every university and every department, you'll find certain people who you should completely avoid because of their working culture or something in their history. So definitely talk to the grad students in the department you're applying, and once you're admitted, definitely talk to them. And then May to July is when you have all these again boring logistics with the paperwork and the visa, and usually you start your grad school by August. And this is kind of like a basic timeline, and it's always good to start and get all your things ready as soon as you can. And a lot of you also might be unsure because you're maybe at the end of your like undergrad, maybe you're finish your undergrad and doing something else, and you're unsure if you want to do PhD or not. So a good way out of it, which is something I think Maria did and even I did, to be sure I want to go into this field and commit to a PhD, was doing a research assistant position or a post-bac position or some internship in any of the national labs at universities. And then it usually ranges from 1 to 2 years. And then you kind of get a taste of how it's going to be like working in a lab or a group as a researcher. And if you feel like you're not had a strong application so far, so this experience also helps you put a lot on your CV and on your SOP to write that, okay, I've done this much research and this is what I liked about it and this is what I didn't like. And this is what makes me hopeful and optimistic that I can be successful as a PhD student, or a career in academia will be helpful for me. And these are, I guess, a few resources you can check out. And there are also other resources we can probably try to send you in an email or something. But yeah, like it's something you have to do some Googling around to find. I think Maria can maybe speak a bit more on how to find these resources.
Yeah, so this was based on my experience because when So when I first came to the US in 2015, I actually came as a research assistant in Georgia. And I did that rather than starting a PhD right away because I just felt that I didn't have enough experience after my master's degree that was mostly theoretical in Italy. And what I did was working for 2 years in Georgia, was part of the staff. I gained a lot of experience. I was able to publish some manuscript, contribute to poster, and also on the other, as international student, I was able, also to save money because, I was paid. I didn't have to pay tuition because I was part of the staff. I wasn't a student. I was an employee out of the benefit. And when I applied to grad school, that experience helped me a lot for application, of course, but also when I joined the lab, I was kind of like independent. So, that's your goal as a tech. I really, know my way. I didn't really need any help. So that's something I always recommend to all my mentees or in general. And it's also good, if you decide that you don't like research, you work 1 year. It's 1 year of work. It's, it's gonna be in your CV, and hopefully will, you save 5 years of PhD because you just realize after 1 year that, I really don't like doing research. I want to change or go to industry. It's also something good for you to really understand if, it's something you want to pursue or not. And those website, Euraxis is more European, if any of our attendees is interested in Europe. And Nature Career is actually the website I've used to find my position as research assistant in Georgia. I use it to find my postdoc position at NYU. So I always recommend this website. In both of them, you just enter the keywords of the field you're interested in, your qualification, the countries where you want to go, and the type of position. So they've been really helpful for me, but I think we have more resources in the next slides as well. There are a lot of programs that can help you in the research on that.
Yeah, I just want to add something here. I would recommend if you're looking for RA positions now in the US, the visa requirements have become a lot more tight. And I had a few friends who had issues with getting a visa when they were coming here for research assistant positions specifically, because your lab might agree and they might be ready to fund you, but RA positions come under like a weird visa category in US where you're not a student, but you're also not like a full-time employee. So it's sometimes like depending on the university, they don't really know how to process your paperwork. So you might get like entangled in the whole visa process. So I would definitely recommend if you do apply for RA positions in US, please make sure that you talk to your PI about all of these things before you apply for these. I've not had any experience with this, but both of you have had experience, and I've had friends who had troubles with this, and I don't know, with the current political atmosphere, it might have gotten worse. So it's better to check. My experience with applying to Europe for these short-term positions has been much better because they're more welcoming to international students. Um, so I would definitely recommend if you're just applying for experience and you find difficulties in the visa processing here, you can expand your search to other countries as well.
Yeah, I've not just for RA positions, I've had my friends who were admitted into graduate programs and then they could not get slots for the visa. So definitely look outside the US also. The funding situation is not the best over here, unfortunately. And I've heard a lot of my friends say that East Asian countries like Japan and Korea and China have becoming more welcoming to international people and researchers. So do consider applying those places as well. Because like if you guys feel that okay, it might be a language barrier or if you have like a problem adjusting to the culture, you can always talk to people who from your country or people who you're going to apply for, any group you're going to apply for, and talk to them how how was the experience of any international people they hosted or any visiting researchers they hosted. But do expand your horizons outside US and also consider like outside Europe also because there are great research being done. At least in astrophysics, China is coming up with a lot of these experiments. Like Juno just got on for neutrino physicists, if anyone's interested. And in Japan, you have a lot of like JAXA, JAXA does a lot of great astrophysics in collaboration with NASA and ESA. And if anyone's interested in LIGO physics, India is making a new LIGO, and you can consider applying for like a research position in IUCAA if you guys want to do. So I do consider other countries as well, because a lot of these projects we work on, I can at least speak for sure in physics. A lot of it is very collaborative across, because a lot of the meetings happen on Zoom, and you have one or two faculty in every country doing this kind of research. So do consider other places as well. And yeah, these are a list of few other useful links. You can also find like something I looked for is Inspire HEP also has a lot of job listings, so you can go there and look for Inspire HEP jobs, but that's only high energy physics. And the other thing I've seen my friends and myself do, for example, if you're interested to explore some particular field, suppose you're interested in exploring how like pharmaceutical lab work, but you're not sure if you like it or not. You can go and talk to the faculty in your undergrad university and say that, okay, you're interested in this. If they know someone any place, or if they know if they are willing to hire you to let you try the research position for 6 months or 1 year. That's a good way to try even outside these job listings, because maybe some labs are not putting up positions on jobs, but then if you have connections through the faculty you have worked with, you can get a position somewhere you did not even know, but then that's a great fit for you based on your interest, but you might not know it because you don't come across them. So do talk to people in your department, do talk to faculty you know who work in the field you're interested in, because they'll always be really happy to help you. And thank you all for listening, and thank you to my co-hosts Dina, Smriti, and Maria. And next we have this panel discussion coming up. And these were a few questions which we got from you guys through the Zoom registration link. And you guys are feel free to ask any other questions you have. And I just request Tina, if you are online, you can just give a short introduction about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Tina, and I'm not an international student, but I'm currently a third-year PhD student in ecology and evolutionary biology at UC Santa Cruz. So if anyone's interested in applying to any of the UCs, I can just point you to some resources and also share some of my experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. So we can maybe so one of the question which I think kind of makes sense is that academic profile and competitiveness. So coming from any international country which is not so famous for a certain field and going to a bigger country where you have a lot more research going on. So how do you guys think you made your application competitive enough in this huge pool of application your grad schools get? Uh,
Yeah, no, in my case, I mean, was the experience as like research assistant that really helped me a lot. And there's also something that my then like PI told me like that, it's very important, especially, whether you're international or not, that uh, you should have like experience before. Um and non-exceptional. I mean, the grades, they can be important, but I would say if you have like experience, becomes more important than your grades. So, uh, that's because at the end of the day, you're gonna be trained in the lab, and your grades, okay, are important, but they are not. I would say usually they are not really the first thing a professor is gonna focus on. If you have experience, uh,
Yeah, I can just add to that. I think, in my opinion, grades, if you have really good grades, they add to your application, or you have really bad grades, they can take away from your application. But if you have above a certain amount, then it's like, yeah, nobody's going to really focus on your grades in that case. If you have really bad grades, and when I say bad, if like in India, the scale was 1 to 10. If your grades were less than 6, or like in maybe yes early 7, then that would be considered not that good. And I have friends who've still gotten really good PhD position just based on their work experience even at those grades. So you can always complement your not very good grades with your work experience, and if you have really good grades then that's fine, but anything above a certain point is considered the same when you're applying for PhD. um, I think what I personally believe about PhD applications is it's so much a game of statistics more than, how good you are and what your application is. Some fields are just more competitive than others. Like Sayukta told about astrophysics. Astrophysics is a very competitive field just because if you're a child in a high school, that's the first area of research, you can get interested in just because it's just the first cool thing for a kid to get into. So that field just has a lot more applicants because a lot more people get into astrophysics early on. Compared to like biophysics is a lesser, like it's a newer field. Not that many people, got into it directly out of undergrad. So there are less applicants for biophysics compared to astrophysics. So, and it might be that, the time you're applying, there's no funding in the lab, there's no funding in the university. So your application might be great, but it's just bad funding situation. So, in my opinion, the best way to make your application stand out is to apply to as many places as you can that are an appropriate fit for your work, and then reach out to professors separately as well. Don't just rely on applying to portals and application portals directly, because that one-on-one connection that you might make with the professor, it might really change things for you, because one university might get 50, 60 applicants, and the professor that you really want to work with might really like your individual application, but that might not even reach to that professor by the time you're applying. So it's important that you reach out separately, you send cold emails, you talk to them separately. And the good thing about cold emailing is also that um, if you get a positive reply, then you know that it's a good idea to apply to this place. And if you don't get any response, then you can cut it out of your list depending on how the response is. So I would definitely recommend think of this as a game of statistics and just apply according to that. Don't worry if you don't have a great application, it's always worth a shot.
Tina, if you want to add something. Tina, can you?
Yeah, sorry, internet is really slow. Yeah, I think definitely having work experience would be great. I know the US application also really value work experience, or just like if you don't have a lot of experience, maybe you can also like show that you have grown in terms of research experiences, and also like through your classes, maybe you've done a research project in your class, maybe you've collaborated with other like researchers, and like just in general having, I think it's good to have as much research experience as you can, if that's possible, but you can also demonstrate your ability to conduct research at a PhD level through other kind of ways. For example, like coursework or other like even work experiences that are like providing very transferable skills.
Something which I have seen and like talked to my friends, as Smriti mentioned, a lot of even my friends had like a huge variety of grades. I know friends who got like straight tens and still didn't get into grad school, and some friends were like in great grad school even with like a 7 point or something. So a lot of it depends on how you kind of tell your story, because at the end of the day, you're a faculty and you're reading thousands and hundreds of application a day, and it all seems to like kind of seem the same at the end of the day. So you want to make your application stand out. So you want to tell a story which is not a lie, or you don't want to lie in your story. You don't want to make it too fake or too, glittery, but you want to make a convincing statement that doing a PhD is going to benefit you, and how you're going to be a valuable resource for the graduate program, how you're going to improve the research which the department is focusing on. So definitely go and read the department's like motives, like what kind of research they focus on, what are their objectives towards the research, what kind of outcomes they look forward to. And just try to, like, even if you don't have enough research experience, but you have some industry experience with like data analysis or coding, and those are kind of skills which everyone uses, like right now in this age, everyone uses across fields. So you can tell how you're well equipped with statistics, how you're well equipped with coding, and how that can help you apply those skills you've learned even outside from research, from industry, but you can apply those skills and transfer those skills into your research. So you want to kind of craft a statement or a story through your application that whatever you've done can be applied and you're enthusiastic and motivated enough to learn whatever is necessary. And one thing I've seen that reading papers helps you a lot because a lot of times in PhD you want to grow as an independent researcher. And when you read papers, like just go to archive and read papers, it helps you understand things and also come up with small, tiny questions. So that kind of shows a lot of enthusiasm and motivation you have towards the field and that you genuinely want to do something in that field. And regarding grades, I have seen that some schools provide you this section where you can explain any extenuating circumstances. So if it was like you were suffering any health issues, like major health issues, and you were hospitalized, and that's why your grades suffered, you can always mention that this is what happened, but I was resilient through this and I recovered from my health issues, and this like to cover up for it, I read these books or I did this small self project or something. So you can always explain your situation in a truthful manner to kind of show your true self to the graduate committee. And we had a question in the chat by Adriana. Adriana, if you want to unmute and ask it. Um, I don't know. Okay, I can just read it out. So, uh, this person is saying that they want to change, they've done research in ecology and physiopathology, but they want to shift into health informatics. So, if they're not sure if they want to shift in or not, and if that could be a bad decision. So, I think Tina, you mentioned ecology something, so if you can share a few.
Yeah, I think Adriana is interested in switching to another field. I think one thing that you can definitely do is to talk to maybe like faculty in the department to learn a little bit more about their research and to decide if that's really something you wanted to do. And I think another idea that would be great is to talk to the graduate students in the department that are doing something that you're planning to do. So maybe just talk to them, ask them about their research projects and see if that's something of interest. And then you can also ask them about their like past research experience and how they got to where they are right now. I think those would be really helpful. I think switching field would be fine in a lot of cases, especially when you already have a lot of research experiences and also have a lot of skills that you've already developed that might be also relevant to the new field that you're applying to. So I think just instead of talking about the experiences that you don't have, you can emphasize what you already learned from ecology, for example, or like other field that you already work on, like really emphasizing those are the skills that I already have, and these are the skills that I can use in my new research project if I do get into this program. Yeah. If you guys have other thoughts.
I would just like to add, I think you can look for programs that have faculties that work in areas that you want to go into, and the areas that you have worked into might be difficult. I'm not aware if like that's possible with some fields, but and you can apply to programs that give you the option for rotations. So when you rotate in labs, you kind of figure out the area that you want to go into, and the area you might work in a place for 2 months and realize, oh, I am not sure about this field for my PhD. And then you can switch depending on what you like. So I think that's a good way to navigate switching to a different field, because the rotation also gives you enough experience to kind of see if you like it, and it also gives you experience to, if you want to work in that lab, now you have a little bit training already because of the rotation projects that you do. So I would definitely recommend doing that, and just talking to people is always a good idea.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I would still like suggest Adriana to apply to so like health informatics. And I think the key for her is, when for submitting the application, writing the letter, it's very important to, be able to convey that the background that she has is not a weakness but a strength. So if she joins a new field, she can bring to the lab all her expertise that probably the lab doesn't have. And you never know what, the professor is gonna do, because based on my experience, if you look at the website or publication, they may work on a certain field, but they may have different collaboration that they're still not, totally public or something like that. So you never know if they may be interested in, a skill that you have, and probably they don't have anybody in their lab that has it, and you coming from another field may actually be, they may be more interested in taking you than other people in your field, because they are all the same in terms of skills, but you coming from another field, you can bring something new. So I guess here the key, you have to be very good in like how you write your letter and how you convey, it's like an advice I always give to my mentees. You have to be very good at be aware of your strength. So don't see, your expert, your experience. Even, a lot of people don't feel sometimes qualified for a PhD, they need more experience. But I think the key is like uh, just to present, what your background as a strength, and to think about what you can bring to the lab. Because, it's, I think in my opinion, is doable. It is true that, the professor is gonna have you in the lab, but it's, if you already are like in the perspective that, oh, I want to bring these skills in the lab, it makes you, feel very, very good, more almost like postdoc level, when you're like, well, I've gained these skills, and, if I join your lab, I can, bring these skills to the lab. So I would totally go for that if it's something that you want to pursue. And yeah, you just need to be uh, aware of your strength, and just be able to convey them when you talk to the professor or when you write a letter.
Yeah, I think I would definitely echo what Maria said, that you might not realize, but might have skills which your group is might require, they might apply it in a different way. For example, I did X-ray astronomy before shifting to astroparticle physics, and even though I thought, okay, this is completely new, I don't know any of QFT, I don't know particle physics, but then they also are looking for point source. They're looking for astrophysical sources. So there's always things you can apply, things you learn, you can always apply. Because a lot of doing research is, for example, reading a paper and trying to critically analyze it. That's a skill you can learn, and once you learn, you can apply it to any paper you read. Like doing good statistical analysis, you can do it in a pharmaceutical lab, you can do it in a physics lab, you can do in a chemistry lab. So these kind of skills which you learn kind of last even beyond like your particular field. So if you're interested in something, talk to people. A good thing to do is, I imagine if I wanted to switch field, I would kind of go and ask that person, like a graduate student or a postdoc in that field I want to go in, and ask them what your day looks like. What kind of things you do? Do you mostly do hands-on work? Do you mostly do like mathematical equation solving? Do you go and like mostly read papers in a day? Do you like what kind of things you do in a day and what your week looks like or what your day looks like. And that kind of gives you a good perspective on whether you would like to do those things in a day or not. Okay, another question was how to do like professional communication and how to network. So I think people were asking how to reach out and like how to cold email, as Smriti mentioned. What are the good practices in cold emailing and reaching out to potential advisors? And then, yeah, so Smriti, if you want to share some sense on that.
Um, I think the general format that I followed for emails was that I only emailed professors that I was sure that I was a good fit for their lab. Don't email professors left and right who you don't, know much about or don't know their work properly. Sometimes that works, but usually it won't because professors are really good at reading through things and being able to tell that, oh, this person is not really interested in my work. Um, so I would definitely recommend shortlisting people that you genuinely want to work with and can really see yourself being a good fit for their lab and their lab being a good fit for you. And the way I would structure the email would be just mention in the first paragraph a little bit about yourself and that you're applying for the grad program and a little bit about the past work that you've done. Then you can go into details about what you've done. Do mention a paragraph of what about their lab you would like to do. Like, is there something particular that's going on in their lab that you're interested in learning or you already know and would like to contribute to? Something about that. So that shows that professor that you actually know what you're talking about and also that you've genuinely been interested in the work that they do. So they don't have to think through the process that, oh, is this person a good fit for me? You already say everything in the email. So I think that's a good practice in my opinion. I would email maybe like a month before your applications are due, even 2 months before, like depending on, it can be too early and then you can send reminder emails. I wouldn't send too many reminder emails, but you can send like one or two if they don't reply. And I would definitely recommend doing that for all the PhD programs that you're applying to. You can also ask, sometimes professors are willing to do like a video call or a Zoom call just to talk more about that. I've not received any positive response for a Zoom call because professors don't have time to meet everyone, but some professors do. Like my professor here, she meets with people who email her about joining the lab just to talk to them. But I don't know a lot of professors who do that, but you can still ask. Um, and you can also ask the questions that you have about, is this the right program to apply to if you want to join their lab? Questions like that, either in the same email or if you have a follow-up conversation with them, I would include those things as well. So I think that's what my advice will be with cold emailing in particular.
Hey guys, may I ask some questions about like reaching out? Um, so maybe first I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm from mainland China. You can call me Sam. I'm majoring in physics. And one thing I'm concerned is like the application has been really competitive nowadays. Uh, so if it's necessary for you to have a publication so that you can apply for a PhD position. Because when I talk to my tutor about like I'm gonna apply for the PhD position, and what he said is like when you're reaching out, it's better like you have an archive or something so that you can just because like the professors they receive really many emails, so maybe some emails they just ignore them or maybe they don't look into it. So my tutor said if you have an archive then you can like uh be some kind of stand out. So I'm concerned if I don't have an archive or any publications, like how can I structure my reach out letter and how long I should like organize the email, so the professor won't feel it too feel like a waste of time to read all these whole letters or words.
So I would think, I think for physics in general, you do not need a publication at all. And I think even my co-host can agree that even in their fields, I'm assuming you do not need a publication to get in a PhD program, because you should not be expected to have a publication before getting into your PhD. Because some people, like if you're working in a lab, in an instrumentation lab, you might go years without having a publication because your experiment takes time. So it's
Yeah.
not necessary to have a publication at all. Um, Depending on the field you are in, so whenever these grad school look at applications, they have a rubric, and in that rubric they have certain criteria. Like if you have above a certain GPA, if you're like 9 point something above or you're perfect 4.0 in US grades, then that's like a +1 for your rubric. And then if you had a publication that adds an edge to your application, but that's not a necessity at all. So suppose you have a publication, but that doesn't fit in your application essay at all. So that publication is not going to help you. So I don't think you should be discouraged that you do not have an archive publication before reaching out to professors. They do not expect you to have an archive publication at all. And secondly, about structuring your email, try to make it concise. Like as Smriti mentioned, the contents you want to write just in a couple of lines what field you're interested in and what you've done so far. And then you want to talk about what you would like to do with them. And then just try to say how your skills can be applied to their group for something productive or something useful, something fruitful. And for you can try attaching a CV or something and don't attach like document link to it because often university emails filter those out. So you can try attaching a Google link or something. But yeah, feel free to reach out to professors you're interested in, but then definitely know that there's some research fit which matches your research interests. You don't want to email someone who's not your perfect fit, and then that's just not gonna be a good use of your time or their time. But yeah, do not be scared that you don't have a publication, so you cannot get into a grad program. And if you're unsure, if you're underconfident about your chances of getting to a PhD, do look at applying for research assistant positions. Do look at applying for master's program. I know for sure a lot of European countries have master's programs where they won't ask you tuition fees, and then you can apply for external scholarships, which will sponsor your staying and like food stipend and stuff like that. So yeah, master's is also a good option if you are underconfident about PhD chances.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
for masters, I think that in Canada they actually pay you to do masters. So maybe some of the Canadian system maybe also be good to look into.
But one thing is like I think many of the physics department in USA they don't have a master program. They only support like master out or something.
yeah, they do not have master's program and it's rather rare. That's true. And also another thing, speaking just from physics, I don't know what subpart of physics you're interested in, but a lot of schools, for example, people usually apply to schools like MIT because that's the best school in physics. But
Yeah.
depending on what field you're interested in, you might not have as great faculty in MIT than you'll have in a smaller state school like Iowa State or something. Because I personally know a theoretical neutrino physicist who's done great work, and now he's going to be a professor. He's a young guy, so he's going to be a professor at Iowa State. So it doesn't matter that you're at a smaller state school, but if you have a PI who is actively doing research and well renowned in their field, it doesn't really matter, except for the location preferences you have. It won't matter much which school you do your grad school from, at least in
Yeah.
physics.
So
So,
my research interest now is most likely lies in the condensed matter theory and condensed matter
mhm.
computation. And uh yeah. So so another problem is like uh most of the applications like requires you to give a research proposal. And I think it's really difficult to like you cannot just plan everything correct and everything proper, everything right before you are already a PhD position. So I wonder how you guys construct your research proposal.
I don't think I ever had to submit a research proposal before applying. Like, others, I think,
Okay.
nodding our head as for no. For US at least, you do not require a research proposal. You give your statement of purpose, which is mostly research experience, and then personal statement. If required, you submit things outside research. But if you want to do theoretical condensed matter, I would say also consider applying to applied physics departments because they also do a lot of this kind of stuff, and applied physics has more funding and more vacancies compared to physics because so it's like depending on which department is getting more application and stuff like that. So do consider other departments.
Yeah, thank you.
Some departments also, some schools also have material science, which do basically condensed matter, but they
Mhm.
just keep it under the name of material science or materials engineering.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for you guys for organizing this meeting. Really thank you.
If anyone else has questions in the Zoom, or we can just go over the panel discussion. Okay, I'll just go. So do you guys have any thoughts on sharing on how people can do lab visits or like talk, like how you can start a conversation? Uh, okay. Arnold, do you want to unmute and speak your question, or we can answer it without you speaking? So Arnold is asking, is it compulsory to talk about the weak parts of your application, example, bad grades? Or like, do you need to justify it or not? So any of you guys want to share something on that?
I would say that it depends on how bad do you think your grades are. If they're not super bad, I would say avoid talking about it. Why draw attention to something, you don't need to draw attention to. But if you think they're really bad, or it might just be that you think they're really bad, but I would just like scale it to US metric and see if you still think they're really bad. Um, but if they're not super bad, I would say that you don't have to talk about it. But if you have a solid reason for why your grades were not good, then you can talk about it. Then you can give a justification, in my opinion.
I've often heard from faculty that if they're in a graduate committee, like selection committee, they do not care about the grades outside your major. So if you're applying for biology, they would mostly care about your grades in biology. And if you have scored badly in mathematics, they would not give much attention to it. So that's one metric you can judge if you need a justification or not. And you can also try talking to your project short mentor if you have one. Because when I had this problem of like, should I explain certain parts or not? And I talked to my project short mentor and he advised me like whether to do it or not. So yeah, definitely like someone needs to look at your whole application packet and then they would give a better advice if you should or not. Uh, any tips you guys have on a scale of 0 to 4, which is what can we consider a bad grade? I I think
Uh, I would say if your like grade converted in GPA are below 3, that's kind of bad. Usually if if your GPA is like 3.6, 3.7, you're okay. Like when I applied, I remember I had my bachelor's GPA was like 3.7 and my master 4, but that was like it's like like if it's like it's not 4, that's fine. Like it's below 3, it's like a little bit I would say low, but still actually I had a mentee last year and their GPA was 3 and they got into a PhD. So and they had like a similar question to Arnold, was like, oh, how should I justify, the grades? Um, and yeah, because at the end, they were a good fit for the program, and they didn't really pay much attention. So don't be too concerned, I would say, about your GPA. Would you recommend any green converter app for international student? In my case, I had to use the how do you say, the like we showed to you in the slide before, the agency, like the WES, which is like an agency, and they convert the grade for you. In my case, was required. So you just submit actually, I don't remember if it was me or your university, like you have to submit them your score, and then they would send to the graduate school your grades convert into GPA for each subject. At least for me was like that. But I honestly, I I don't know. For me, it was 10 years ago, so I don't know if now there are like easier way to do that. If you're not required to go through the agency. So I don't know if you have like any suggestion, like for just a reliable way to convert grades into GPA.
I think a lot of schools strongly mention that do not convert, but if they don't mention, I would just put in both of the grades, like your original ones and also the converted ones. And if they ask you to convert, they will specify a program, or like they specify some metric. And the easiest way is just scale it. Like if you're doing it on 10 and then the US is on 4, just do a scaling, just multiply the factor. So that's something I would do.
I was just Googling it right now. It seems like a lot of universities post their own metric, like conversion too. So you can check if the university you're applying to, or like one of the universities you're applying to, have posted like what converter they use or their own conversion skills. You can check your grade. But otherwise, this is not something you have to worry about before you're applying, because once you apply, like in the application portal, you'll have the option to see what your grade would be converted to. I also recommend that if you think your subject GPA is much better than your overall GPA, mention it separately in your application, so that way you don't have to justify like your overall grade. Like if your degree was in physics and you're applying to a physics program, and just the physics subject GPA was much better than your overall GPA, you can just mention it as like subject GPA this much and then overall GPA this much, and that might just you don't even have to give an explanation in that case.
Yeah, I agree that they would mostly want to look at your subject GPA, like your major GPA, instead of looking at your overall. Definitely do consider that. One outstanding thing I see for the panel discussion was this determining the appropriate level of transparency regarding your international background. I'm not exactly sure what it tries to say, but I think this would be something which goes into your personal statement, where you're trying to explain where you come from, or like what your background has been, maybe growing up, or your background as an undergrad, and if you had any lack of resources or opportunities compared to if you think the rest of the applicant pool. maybe you can talk about that over there, but I'm not sure exactly where else I would talk about my international background.
Yeah, I think some schools ask for personal statements that's separate from your statement of purpose. And maybe there you can expand on this if necessary. But at the end of the day, your application is mostly just compared on the basis of your research experience and how good of a fit you are for a particular lab. Um, and if you're an international student, it might be that, the number of applicants they take from internationally are a little less, but I don't think you would be discriminated because of the country that you come from. So if you're worried about how much you have to explain where you come from, I don't think that's something you should worry about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as an international student, I think, talking about your background can be, another strength because, you have a different experience and, um, if you want to write about something that, happened and was important to you and make you, I don't know, like, made your passion for science, for STEM grow and, you know, I always say as long as it's true and, it's your experience, everybody has a different experience. Um, why they decide to do a PhD or, so I would say if it's something, important for you and it actually, was a meaningful experience, it was related to something that happened in your country, in your school. So I would say go for it as long as, it's true as your experience. Uh, I personally always see that like as a strength, it's something that happened to you and, uh, yeah, so I wouldn't see that like as a weakness or as an issue, honestly. So I wouldn't worry about that.
And lastly, we have this lot of fee waivers available. So if you have, oh, there's something. I have more than 5 years of finance practice. Um, so I have seen a lot of people like I did not expect this when I was coming to grad school, but when I came to grad school, I realized you have people coming in from various different fields, like people go for industry and then they come back, or they have done a PhD, like a master's in biology, and then they switch to mathematics. So a lot of grad schools are welcoming and they value your diverse skill set. So even if you've worked in industry for 5 years, but you have a genuine motivated reason to come back to grad school, I don't know what your field is, but if you have a genuine reason to come back to grad school and genuine motivation, and you can kind of pick up on the skills you've learned on your way as a 5 year person who's working in professional experience, and you can pick up the skills you've learned. Like the one most common thing I can think of is like coding or like anything with statistics and probability you've done. And if you want to go somewhere more instrument or lab focus, maybe you worked in some hardware job or some instrument job, and then you can transfer skills of working with like electronics or doing firmware and like robotics or something. So you can always transfer those skills as long as you're aware that what your strengths are and what you really mastered in these 5 years and how you can apply those in your research.
Yeah, also maybe if you have examples of like you taking leadership in any of the project or any of the work that you've done during your industry experience or other professional experience, just show that you've taken initiative and you're like going above and beyond what's expected in a technician. Just make up a good story about how you've been initiative and like motivated to being in research.
Yeah, also, I just want to say like, for example, if you go to like our YouTube page of Project Short, we do like have like we have the recording of a seminar that focused on personal statement and SOP from last year. So if you think like you need additional support of that, you can watch the recording, and I'm sure there's gonna be a new webinar probably next month coming up.
Next week.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Know that information.
So yeah, so if you need additional support, since like the purpose of this webinar was just for, you know, guidance for international applicants, we will have like follow-up like webinars about letter of recommendation, personal statement, that hopefully also can answer your question and they can help.
And you could also try talking, like if you know someone who's gone this path, or if you're gonna apply for a particular program, you can try talking to the coordinator of that program and see if the the department is welcoming to such people who are coming from industry, and they can give you contacts of people who have been through the same path. Because everyone has a unique path, but you often find like some coherence between different people and their journey. So you can try reaching out. And from my experience, people are usually very nice to help you get into academia or to help you like with your application. Okay. Do we have any more questions, or otherwise we can just like, give like a last comments from each of the host side? Will it be possible to get in touch with you to kindly review my CV? I don't know who's this for.
I mean, if are you like mentees with Project Short? If you I'm not sure, because if you're a mentees enrolling Project Short, you should be matched with a mentor. Or if you're still waiting, we can, I don't know, double check that you're in the system. Because most of the people have been matched so far, right, Tina? I think, yeah. So just let us know if you are like enrolled as a mentees, and we can just double check that, you know, there is a mentor that can help you with that.
Yeah, if you can email Project Short, then we can get back to you.
Would any of you have any last piece of advice you would give to yourself as an applicant?
I would say if applications don't work out this year, you can always apply next year. If getting a PhD is not the end of the world. It's not worth losing your mind over.
I agree. And just everything would be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary. I mean, I would say, you know, always trying, you know, to see your, like, to highlight your strength, you know, because it's very common for students just to say, oh, I don't have enough experience, my grades are not enough, I don't have publication. But, you know, I guess the key for everything is, you know, try to be positive. So, you know, try to highlight your strength. And I'm sure you're like passionate about science and you have, you know, something you want to pursue, you know. So um and I mean, as they are saying, it's not the end of the work. Most of the time is it's not related to you. There are a lot of things, you know, a lot of variables um every year. So sometimes it's just like, you know, your lab of interest, they just have, you know, they don't have funding, so they already have a lot of students. So it's not you. And you know, if you still want to do research, you can look for lab tech position, research assistant position. So I would say don't be discouraged, and try to be, resilient and persistent, which is also very important quality for scientists. So also learn, how you can improve and yeah, and continue.
Yeah, this is definitely not then. Like, I know so many people who tried to, who applied multiple times, and it's not at all a comment on your ability or your success as a researcher. It's just so many people are applying, and then there are things which are out of your control. So even if it doesn't work out for you this year, don't give up on it. And there's like much more to life besides this. You might be 1 year behind your other cohort, like your other friends, but in the long term, it's not gonna really matter at all. So yeah, just don't give up and be optimistic. Yeah. Thank you to all my co-hosts and thank you to the participants. I hope you guys had a good time and got a bit of overview of what things are gonna look like. And you can always reach out to Project Shot if you want to enroll. I'm not sure, Tina, if the applications are still open or not, but if you want any help, you can reach out to Project Shot. There are a lot of mentors from different fields and different backgrounds and countries, so we can always try and get someone to help you.
Yeah, I also sent a link to our mentee Slack. If you all haven't joined it, it's a good chance to join it. And I think people are sharing different opportunities every day, and we're also sharing our event there. So it would also be a good space to get connected with other mentees from different countries who might have different or similar backgrounds.
Yeah, so I think we can end the session now. Okay, yeah. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.